are you?
Great, great, great. Great to meet you.
Oh, it's so nice to meet you too. I just want so much for your message to come across to bless the Lord's people that need to hear this.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I just felt your faith and your love for the Lord. I just amazed at your story and how you were ready for retirement. And here, just a couple months down the road in February, you were going to be retired. And then you get the call to go to Venezuela.
That was really something that people got surprised because you don't think these things happen, but it happens.
And like you said, we all have unexpected things that happen with the phone call or the news, something that comes to us, something that happens to us. That life happens.
You never know when your life is going to change dramatically.
Yeah.
It changed like this. Well, wow. My story, I come from the oil and gas. Okay, I was an oil and gas guy. And I'm a third generation of oil and gas, and my son is a fourth generation because my grandfather, my father, my grandmother, my mother, and my wife, and we were all oil workers because we are Venezuelan born. Venezuelan in back to the 80s, in the 90s was a very wealthy country with a very powerful oil and gas company. Did this 35 years career. I stayed like 20 years in Venezuela working with a lot of international joint ventures. And then they transferred me to the US here, to Houston, like 15 years ago. And at the end of the career, in 2017, I was the CEO of the company. And everything was okay for me. Having a wonderful life. But the situation in Venezuela has, unfortunately, a communist regime since decades. So the situation was being deteriorated. And they did a fake election there. And the thing began to go bad. And by the time Trump was in office, and he began to do a lot of pressure to take these guys out and begin to impose sanctions, did an oil embargo. And when I began to see all this stuff, I told my wife, you know what? I'm going to get retired. So I went to talk with my boss. I said, hey, I have 35 years, and he accepted to get retired. So he told me, okay, Jose, give me until February. I said, okay, because what's coming Thanksgiving. And I went to see a movie with my wife, and suddenly you receive a phone call. My wife always talks about this. The adversity always comes with a phone call. That was my phone call, adversity phone call. So he called me and he said, hey, Jose, you have to come to Caracas tomorrow. There's going to be a big meeting here. And the day after, I was traveling to Caracas in the corporate plane with my 5 top executives. And we went to Caracas, and the other day we did a big meeting because it was 1,000 people. There's a standing ovation. Everybody was happy. I was going to the airport to come back. That came my nightmare because I saw when these guys, was like 20 guys, and they came with mask, skeleton mask. And when I saw that guy, everybody was scared. I told the guy that was with me, what is that he is saying? The guy was really scared to death. And he told me, Jose, this is the counterintelligence police, military police. I was not aware because I was living here in the US. And they asked for me. We went to another room, and then appeared a general, because there was a military police. And this guy began to say that we were accused of espionage, treason, embezzlement, corruption. And we thought that was something wrong. What is this? This is a joke? That became to be our nightmare because that day we went to this military installation, handcuffed, and we were in a 3-story basement, totally confined. We were totally separated, so I didn't know where the other guys were. And that confinement there lasted 10 months. So during the next 10 months, I didn't have no contact with the exterior world. The lights all the day turned on 24/7. There was lock, there was no window. And we begin to have serious health issues. I got bronchitis, I got pneumonia, I got scabies. So it went through, my situation began to deteriorate fastly. And by the way, the food was really terrible. So I lost 100 pounds.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, 100 pounds. I think we were going to die. So when we were like in the 10 months, one day they opened the door and they called me, and they have a phone and said, you have 1 minute call, is your wife. Because I didn't know that by that moment they were having a lot of pressure. So they gave me this call. And when I talked with my wife, I asked her, "How are you?" And she told me, "Hey, papi, we are fighting very hard for you." And I said, "I'm alive." That was that 1 minute call. I remember 1 minute, that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
So
That's it.
that's it, 1 minute. But I heard her. So when I heard her, I said, okay, they're okay. They're working for me and they know now that I'm alive. When I came back, when I talked with my wife, I asked her, how was your feeling during that call? And she told me that she couldn't stop crying all the day after that. But for her, hearing my voice was, wow, he's alive.
Yeah, because I'm
That,
sure she didn't have any news about you.
let me tell you, they were going to there and they were denying that I was there. So I was
Oh,
literally disappeared,
yes.
literally.
Yes.
And after that call,
Wait, can I back up for just 1 second for you? During those 10 months, it could be so easy to feel abandoned, to feel like nobody cares, like you don't have any contact with the outside world, nothing with your family, your wife, nobody. And it would be so easy to lose hope during that time.
I was
Yeah.
losing hope. But let me tell you, I was losing hope. At some point, I was even thinking in commit suicide because I saw that my situation, I was feeling that I was going to die there. So that was my situation in that moment. But after I received that call, of course, that gives you a boost. And 2 months after, one day, they opened the door again. There was a French lady and a Spanish guy, and they presented, they were from the UN, was a UN commission that flew to Venezuela. And when they talked with me, the first thing they said, we already talked with the other guys. So I knew that we're alive.
Yeah.
Okay. And then these guys saw us, they really got surprised when they saw us because we were really in bad condition. This guy went to the government and said, these guys are going to die. This guy need food and medicine. There was no food in Venezuela because the situation was really deteriorating. So they authorized our family to bring us food. So my eldest son, he moved to Bogota. From Bogota, he was purchasing the food and was delivering to Venezuela. And somebody picked up the food, they cooked, and they sent it to me. It was a total logistic. They stayed doing that during 4 years.
4 years.
4 years. Of course, the situation changed because I began to receive food and medicine, even though these guys sometimes were stealing the medicine because Venezuela didn't have medicine. So when they sent me the boxes of medicine, this guy took it. I had to receive the food, eat the food, and the day after send the cans, trash can back. I began to smuggle letters inside there. In the double bottom, I began to put letters. And I said, okay, I was thinking, what is the worst thing that can happen to me? So I took the risk. That first letter went through. And 2 days later, when I received the food, I opened, boom, appears a letter of my wife. And we stayed doing it during 3 years. I was literally writing every day at 3 p.m. I had a smuggler, a pen, and the guy that was providing me the food, he was putting like some kind of napkin, but a big napkin that I was writing there. And I was doing it every day. I was putting what I was thinking. At the beginning, when I began to do that, really I was thinking that, okay, if I don't make it, at least my family are going to have the chronicle of what happened. But at some point, I began to say, no, Jose, you're going to make it. And this is going to be your testament. So let me tell you, Karen, when I came back, my wife had compiled those letters, almost 1,000 letters. And that became to be what's going to be my book now. The flow of the letters begin to change, begin to evolve. So that's why I can tell you very vividly that the first letter were totally hopeless. And it began to change the situation because our situation began to improve. I know today all this event because my wife has told me, of course, so I could review all the things that happened. So that first year, what was happening is that since day one, they went to the U.S. government, and the U.S. government was on board. So we were not really abandoned; they were on board. But the situation was going so bad there that the ambassador was recalled. After 6 months, he was recalled. So they lost direct contact. So they began to triangulate with the UN and other governments, but they were having this type of by the scene negotiation. And we became the political pawns of the relation between Venezuela and US because they were asking to get relief the sanctions to release us. So we were going to be chained for the relief of the sanctions and leave the oil embargo. Can you imagine that? And of course, there was a lot of back and forward. And at some point, this guy began to relax the situation. And our family decided that it stopped being quiet because the government was asking to be quiet, be silent. And the first year they did it. Really, the press didn't know that we existed. So when they went to the press the first year after, wow, the press got surprised. So they began to get a lot of interviews. They're having a lot of pressure. One day they opened the door, they took me for the place I was, and then I saw these other five guys, and we were put together after 1 year.
Oh,
So being together, we begin to receive information for all over, and we were hearing that they were doing interviews in CNN and Bloomberg and all over Washington Post. And wow, we said our family was doing a lot, and that again began to infuse more because you know that something was happening. We were put together. It was a very tiny room, like a 100 square foot. But even we were in this tiny room, we were together. We were together, and we did a plan to survive. So we begin to organize everything. We organized to eat, to do exercise, to read, because they begin to allow us to read. I was writing. One day, one of the guys came to me and said, Jose, why are you writing so much? I said, no, I'm writing to my wife. At that moment, I was already thinking in my book. At that point, I was already thinking in my book because I was developing a secret code with my wife for everything we were talking. And I told her, I'm going to write my book, and my book is going to call From Hero to Villain. And that's the name of my book, From Hero to Villain, the true story of the Citgo. The days were going really fast because we were all the day busy doing things, all the day. We never stopped. We were like the hamster in a cage, all the day running in the cage, doing things. And one day, October 1st, 2022, they opened the door and they said that we were released. They put us in a plane. We were headed to the airport. They put a handcuff. They tied our legs, and we landed in a Caribbean island called San Vincent and Grenadine. So in October, when we saw that plane landing, I remember I was going to the other plane, and we saw when two guys came. We were back with a prisoner swap, that two nephews of the president of Venezuela. So we were swapped with these guys. And we landed here in San Antonio in a military base. We went to
I bet you felt so relieved when you got on that US plane.
Let me tell you, for me, everybody was crying, everybody was singing, everybody's laughing, everybody was shouting. And we were there. I was sitting because the ambassador, he seated with me, and we were talking. Some hours later, he received a phone call, and he attended the phone call. And then and when he cut the phone call, he said, Jose, already we crossed the U.S. space. The president has talked with your wife. And he told them that we were going to be protected by the U.S. government in a military base. I told the ambassador, can I talk with my wife? So he gave me the phone, and I called her. I called her and said, hey, mommy, I'm here. And she was, yeah, I know, the president called me, he called me,
Wow.
yeah. And when I landed, they were waiting there, all my family.
The day that you had probably dreamed of.
Wow, I can tell you, there is a moment there that for me, today, I still think that this is going to be the moment of my life, because when I was going from the tarmac to the hangar, they didn't allow no press, okay? And when I was going, I saw a very tiny guy running. He has blonde hair, he's curly blonde hair. That is my grandson. My grandson has been there. He had 3 years by the time. But I knew him because I was seeing photos of him. So after that, I realized that my daughter-in-law was always showing photos. This is your grandpa. So when he saw me, he recognized me.
Oh,
So he came to me, and that was the end of the story and the beginning of my new journey.
that is your new journey. So I understand that now you coach people that are struggling, and I also am a life coach. And one of the things that I have noticed is that when a person loses hope, that is one of the most difficult things to get over. And so many times when a person is losing hope, they're trying to figure out how to navigate that part of the adversity. And what were some of the thoughts that went through your mind when you felt no more hope? I mean, I know you said that you were thinking of ending your life. What were some of the other thoughts that you had during that time?
You said it very well because the problem is sometimes it's your mind that plays game with you. So when you reset your mind, in my case, after I received that call from my wife, I said, okay, Jose, you had to really work your case. So I decided to become focused on the situation. I said, okay, this is your situation. You're going through this. So when I begin to be calm and focused, I begin to get more relaxed. And my mindset changed because, again, it's your mind playing games there. I always was a positive guy, always, all my life. All my life, everybody that knows me knows that I'm having always positive. My wife always joked with me because she said that I'm naive with the people. I said, no, I'm not naive. I believe in the people. I decided to reset me and got that positivity. I got connected to my family because when I begin to have the letters, Karen, I can tell you, at some point I was really very informed about everything. And let me tell you, for me, when I came back, I remember I told her the only thing that I'm gonna miss are those letters. Because those letters begin, I was sending the letter and waiting in 2 days to receive the other letter. It was like an excitement moment, opening that and see, is there the letter? So when I was reading them, and it was like feeling them, and I was writing and I was putting my soul. That is something that today I always talk that in that any adversity, you have to connect with your loved ones
Mm.
because this is the way you're going to navigate this. I will tell the people never do the things alone because one of the things that happen with the people when they lose hope is they get depressed and they get alone.
Yes.
So they do their thing alone. And unfortunately, this is one of the biggest challenge today in the world that people get depressed and alone. And people that you believe they are okay and they're not okay. So
Yes.
you had to connect with the people that love you. So after we did all these things and we were put together with the other guys, that we created a bond because part of our plan was never letting nobody to be down. So for some reason, somebody was down in some moment, the other five guys jumped immediately. Any struggle, any argument that could be going on immediately was stopped. So these things today is part of my coaching program that I talk. And the other thing is that take care of your mental and physical health because if you're having any problem and you're gonna go down, depressed, you're not gonna take care of your mental and physical health, it's gonna be worse. So we begin to take care of ourselves. Let me tell you, for us, exercising was the most funny thing you can imagine. In that cage, one guy was static yoga, the other was doing cardio, the guy was doing static running, the other guy was doing push-up, the other guy was doing yoga, and we were like hamster doing things, but we did it in a daily basis. We dedicated 2 hours to that, so we were planned to do that, and we were dedicated to read, and we were dedicated to write, and we were dedicated to read the Bible and pray. We took 3 hours a day from 8 p.m. to 11 a.m. between reading the Bible and praying. And this is the other thing, you have to connect to your spirituality. Because this is the other thing that I discovered that I began to read the Bible like I had never read it because I was not a guy, I was a Catholic guy born in a Catholic country, but I never had read the Bible the way I read it. So when I rediscovered Paul, I did rediscover Luke, I discovered Peter. Wow, I was so amazed. I got big fan of these guys. So that really makes a change. When doing all these things together.
Well, and it's so amazing. Like when you read the Bible and you read about Paul being in prison and all the trials that he went through, it probably gave you comfort to know that he had gone through it and he persevered and the Lord helped him through his trials.
I have something I want to say here that for me is amazing because they begin to allow us to have things. For the first time in 4 years, I had a TV. And I saw the movie of Paul there. And let me tell you, seeing the story of Paul in prison, seeing the way he handled the situation, wow, was really surprising, was amazing. So I think this is the type of thing that I think I say today, these are kind of sign of God.
Yeah.
Because can you imagine you being in a prison, seeing that Paul in a movie and seeing how he was in his struggles and his adversity, his ordeal in prison, and how he made it. And when you see that story and you begin to be reading the Bible in a profound way, how we were doing it. Oh, I can tell you, that was a different game. Let me tell you, when I came back, the first thing I did was going to the church. I'm today very connected with my church, with my pastor. I today are part of a group that we are senior citizen. I'm 62, yeah. And we have a group called Golden Heart. So we gather, we do things together. So I'm today very connected with my church and my wife. So this is one of the things that I rediscovered after all this. So that's part of what today I coach because my program is called Life Pills for a Survivor Guide, and it's basically based on that.
Yes. And I wondered in your personal life before with your family or somebody that you knew, had you seen someone go through adversity and did you tap into some of those memories of some past experience or someone else's role modeling for you in your life that helped you?
There's a very interesting question because let me tell you, I'm today, I'm not going to say that at the beginning when I came back was easy. I had to go to a trauma center. I was having some PTSD events and I began to have therapy. By the way, I have today still therapies every week that we became friends. Now we talk as a friend. But she did something great. She began to explore my past. And I discovered that I have a lot of events in my past that was preparing me for this event. Things that happened in my past that I didn't remember. They were there back in my memories. When I rediscovered all those things, I said, wow, God, you were preparing me for this event. For some reason, God prepares you. God has like a master plan for you, and you don't know it because He's not going to reveal it to you. He will never reveal it. And it's your strength and your faith and your wisdom that will put you to go to get there. So I rediscovered that I went through a lot of events in my previous life, as I said, that was preparing me for that big event. So he was really preparing me.
And what a beautiful thing to look back and to see that. Now you can connect the dots. In the middle of those other times,
Mhm.
it can be very confusing. And yet, when you look back and you can see it now, it fills you with gratitude, I'm sure, for the way that your
Yes.
life played out.
The other day, somebody asked me that if somehow I can feel gratitude that the situation I went, and I can tell you, I'm not going to say that I'm glad that happened to me, but I learned a lot through this. So that's why when I came back, our families with 19 more families of another American, they were hosted all over the world. They got together and they create a movement called the Bring Our Family Home campaign. So for the first time, all these families were working together. They create a mural in Washington with our faces, a very big mural that, by the way, it began to get more press when we put in the mural that Brittany Griner. She was famous. So when she was there, a lot of press began to go to the mural. And so when I came back, I said, okay, I want to take a photo in the mural because the mural was part of my release. That was something like miracle. So I flew to Washington with my wife to take some photos in the mural there. I met a lot of families in person. I saw their faces. I saw the faces of former hostages. And I began to talk with them. And when I began to talk with them, and I saw these stories are very similar to mine. The stories are very similar because this is something that I talked today. This is something called the hostage diplomacy. That in this government, they are evil and they reply this like a technique. It's like a very sophisticated diplomatic technique to leverage using human beings.
Yeah.
So that's why I decided to begin to help those families and give them hope. Hope. Give them hope. And that's why I decided to begin to coach because, okay, Jose, you have your experience. For some reason, God put you in this path. And I begin to work with the foundations that support the hostage community. Today, I'm connected to all of them. Every time they have any event, they call me. I'm always available. I assist in forum with them. I was in the UN. I went to the Congress. I begin to really become vocal talking about that thing, the hostage diplomacy. And even in my LinkedIn account, I have a newsletter that my two topics are that and leadership, because leadership and resiliency. I decided to go that path. And at some point, that is God that put in that situation. I feel gratitude
Yeah,
because of that.
I'm sure you do. And the other thing that I was amazed when you were able to get the Bible to read, what a blessing to have the word. And then when you read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, which is another one of my favorite books. And of course, there were so many similarities between the suffering that he went through and what you were going through. It was like a concentration camp.
Let me tell you, there are so many similarities. Viktor Frank tells in his book that we were, at that point, we were starving, okay? And I remember that they brought on Sundays a soup. And that soup for us was a feast, having the soup. Was the best thing to eat in the week, a soup. And when the guy put us in a line to fill up the soup, we were always begging to get some meat, something, not only the liquid, some meat. Viktor Frank talks about that in his book. When I read his book and he narrates the event of the soup in the concentration camp, I said, wow, it was like this guy talking to me. Literally, of course, this guy maybe were in a severe situation than us, but there was a lot of similarities.
A lot of the similar feelings.
Oh, yes. Not only that, he narrates in his book so many things that we were feeling and suffering in that moment that I said, this guy is talking to me. So for me, that was God talking to me. And when he was saying that you need to find your purpose, you find your path, find God, I said, okay, this guy is talking to me. So that's why today that's my book.
That's wonderful. And I remember when he said how important finding meaning is in suffering. And that's one of the purposes of our life here, is because everyone's life includes some form of suffering at some point in time. And to be able to find meaning and purpose in that suffering. And I remember thinking, sometimes when I've gone through suffering, it's been hard for me to find a purpose, and it's been hard for me to find a positive meaning. And when you're coaching with someone and they're struggling in the depths of despair, and they can't think of anything, they can't think of any good thing that could possibly come out of this, how do you help them to find a purpose and to find a meaning?
Because I always tell them that this is something that really you have to do it by choice. This is a very personal decision. It's your choice. So I always encourage them. And for me, it's easy to tell them that I'm a proof of it.
Yes.
So I'm not talking. I'm a proof of it. So that for me is like I can reinforce them that again is a very personal choice. Really, the person has to shake and rewire her brain and change the mindset. This is the only way to make this. This is the only way to make this. Doing that.
Yes, that's so true. And I remember one of the other things that I was so impressed with Viktor Frankl was when he said that they could take everything away from him, but they could not take away
your
his
soul.
thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was his ability to choose how to think. And that's what
Well, it was the same as because this guy at some point, the way they try to break you, because this is the way that if they break you, they're going to put you, begin to make pressure. So they apply this type of techniques, but they couldn't break us. They couldn't break us. Karen, I remember that my daughter, when she received me in the hangar in San Antonio, she always tell me that when she talks about this, she said, I saw my dad, he was coming from a vacation because I landed laughing. But you know why I was so happy? Because I was thinking, I made it.
Yes.
I made it. So that was like a wow, you made it. So I really was in a happy mode because of that.
Now, another thing that I wonder if you used a lot is your imagination. Did you use your imagination to help you through?
A lot. Let me tell you one thing we did a lot. A lot. We the six of us were guys. We were long career, very successful, all of us, and always vacation. We're traveling. We were all the time talking about traveling. We were talking about travels on the world. Everybody was talking. When I was in Italy, and we were talking about food. We were talking about cooking. We were talking about sporting. We were all the day doing imagination. Yeah, and let me tell you, every day we did it. We did it, as I said, we did a very comprehensive plan. When we had the opportunity to be together, we were having this conversation about travels. And so at some point, we began to play domino. We did a tournament of domino there. So we began to try to manage our situation. But yeah, the imagination was key all the day thinking in good stuff because that maintained a positive mindset.
Yes, that's very good. I wondered, did you think about anybody else while you were in that going through that? Did you think of anybody else besides Paul that had gone in your personal life, somebody that you knew in your family perhaps that had gone through hard things?
Yeah, of course, I went through in my personal life. I had the story of my dad and my mom. My dad passed when I was 14, so that is one of the events that today I discovered that event because it happened when I was 14 and literally became like the man of the family, being 14. So I didn't remember that. But now I am aware that I did it and I managed to do it. And so that at some point gave me some kind of techniques of how to overcome that situation that I was not aware. But yeah, I was already thinking and seeing situations that have happened in my life. Yes.
Yeah, tell me more. What were those other events that happened in your life that the Lord prepared you for this one?
I had that event when I was 14. Then 12 years after, when I was 36, my mom passed and literally passed in my hands. So she, during those 22 years, she never stopped crying. I believe they were soulmates, but she didn't handle it. She was 22 years of suffering. And I had to deal with that. And literally, when she passed, I was thinking, okay, it happened. Literally, she died in my hands. I was 36. And at that moment, that was another big event in my life. Those two events, I really thought this is something that happened for something. And the time happened that I forgot that. When I came back, I began to go to this therapist, is that I began to recall all those events. So those events for me really was preparing me for what's going to happen in the future. I can stay here talking hours, okay? And there are several events that happen in during the years. I'm gonna say only one. I'm gonna tell only one here. I begin to do my career and I begin to progress in my career back into 2005. I was having a meeting with the BP in London. So I finished my meeting on Friday. I was flying back on Sunday morning, so I had Saturday to be off. So I decided to go to these double deckers to do the tour of the city. And I began to walk Saturday in the morning. Nobody was there. That was totally empty, very nice weather. I was walking. When I was going to the Hard Rock Cafe, appeared a guy sitting in the wall. So the guy told me, hey, you want me that I tell you the future? I continue walking, and the guy began to walk beside me, said, let me tell you the future. And I said, oh, this guy's going to steal me the wallet. So I began to walk faster, and the guy continued walking, and he said, let me tell you the future. The name of your wife is boom. And he said the name of my wife. When he said the name of my wife, I said, what's going on here? Why you know the name of my wife? And he told me, because I had to tell you the future. And he told me, you have to be careful because you're going to go in a trip in a plane that's going to change your life.
Oh my goodness.
He told me that, and I was flying the other day. So I called my wife and I told her, hey, mommy, happened this situation. I'm going to cancel the flight. Maybe that is going to crash. And she said, no. And okay, I came back. All that the flight I was thinking, but we landed. I was in Caracas at the moment. So landed in Caracas, everything fine. Nothing happened. Years passed. Every time I was going to a trip, I was thinking what the guy told me. 2017, it happened. I went
Oh,
in the plane in a trip that changed my life forever.
yes.
So
Yes.
that guy, he was telling me the future.
He certainly was. Oh my
So,
goodness. You are such an amazing example of resilience. And I love your positive nature. I love your faith. I love how you relied on the Lord to help you and how you did rely on your family and how they supported you. That is such a gift from the Lord to have your family to be there for you. And
oh yeah, my wife. And by the way, I'm encouraged my wife to write her book because I told her your story is going to resonate to a lot of women. They're going and struggling in their life because the way she did it, I don't know how she did it. I can tell you, I'm here because of her. I'm
right.
here because of her. Because if she doesn't, and my son, because if they don't do, or my three sons, because all of them was doing something to support me. At
Yeah.
some point, and this is something that really is important to say that the family, when you're going through this situation, literally put their life in pause. It's the same when you're going in any adversity. Maybe your family, you're having somebody close to you, they're having a serious illness. Literally, all the family goes in pause. So this is difficult because sometimes you're talking about the person that's having the adversity. You don't talk about the people that are surrounding them. So that's why I'm encouraging my wife that really to write her book because her story will resonate with a lot of people.
Yes, and that is such a true point because so many times the one person that is specifically dealing with the issue, it does affect everyone else. And like you said, the whole family
Totally.
does go on pause because the focus is there.
They
And
were
that
not in a physical prison, but they were in a psychological prison because you don't have more anniversaries, you don't have more birthday. So they put your life in pause. So
yes, yes.
it's like a bomb in the middle of the family.
Do you have any last parting words of wisdom that you would like to share with our listeners?
I always tell the people that sometimes people think that the situation they're going through is something that maybe they can handle, they can make, and I can tell them that they can do it because God put you in some circumstance, but He never abandoned us. He never abandoned you because I will discover that even we were in dark moment, He was there with us. He was taken by a hand. So any situation in your life, you can survive it, but it's your choice the way you decided to overcome it. Everything is here.
Yes. And
Everything.
that's such a beautiful thing because even though our mind can trick us to think that we are abandoned, to think that God has forgotten us in addition to everybody else, that's not true. But the truth
That's true.
is that he is there, even if we can't feel it, that he is there. And
Always. Today I see God everywhere.
I bet you do. And I bet you saw him in the smallest thing to get that letter. Probably just felt like a miracle to be able to get the letter from your wife. You probably saw miracles all the time in things that ordinarily would not look like a miracle.
I have another miracles that I can, but I'm not going to say it here because I want the people to write it in my book.
Yes, and so the name of your book is Hero to
from,
Villain.
from hero to villain, the true story of the Citgo Six. I believe that more or less in 2 months, I'm going to have it out.
Okay, I can't wait to read it myself. And I just want to tell you that you are a hero, and you're a hero to your family, and you're a hero to everyone that hears your story. Because I can say, if you could do what you did and go through what you did, then I can go through what I'm going through. And if you can rely on the Lord in the most desperate of situations, I can turn to him too. And I can believe that he is there for me too.
Yeah, that's totally true. Totally true. It is that way.
So
It's
you,
exactly that way.
yes, and so you are a beacon of hope that turn people to the Lord. And so thank you for being that wonderful beacon of hope.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It was a beautiful visit. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Bye.